Hello, welcome to my class. I am Pamela Jasmine. Today I am going to teach history, the United Nations. According to the new syllabus, we have to start from the objectives. So, the objectives of the United Nations. The objectives for which the United Nations was established are enshrined in the preamble to the UN Charter. So, the objectives of the United Nations are written in the preamble to the UN Charter. Main objectives. The purpose of the United Nations was defined in Article 1 of the Charter. So, it is written in the Article 1 of the UN Charter. First objective, to maintain international peace and security. That is the first and foremost objective. It is the main objective, to maintain international peace and security. To take collective measures for the prevention and removal of threat to peace, to suppress acts of aggression or other breaches of peace. So here 3 points. So to take collective measures. Collective measures means all the nations should act collectively. So collective measures for the prevention and removal of threat to peace. So there should be peace. To maintain peace, we should react against the threat to peace. Prevention and removal of threat to peace. To suppress acts of aggression. We should not allow any act of aggression. So, to suppress any acts of aggression or other breaches of peace or other. So, if there is any other measures to break peace, that also should be suppressed. So, altogether to maintain international peace and security. Second, to develop friendly relations among nations based on respect for the principle of equal rights and self-determination of people. So, to develop friendly relations among nations. So, all the nations should have friendly relations based on respect for the principle of equal rights. All the nations, all the members should have equal rights and self-determination of people. So, like that, a friendly relationship should be maintained. Third point, to achieve international cooperation in solving international economic, social, cultural or humanitarian problems. So, everyone should be together to solve any problems. So, to achieve international cooperation in solving international problems regarding economic, social, cultural and humanitarian problems. So, everyone should unite, everyone should cooperate and solve all the problems of all the countries in the United Nations. So, which all problems? Economic, social, cultural and humanitarian problems. And encouraging respect for human rights and for fundamental freedoms. And every nation should respect the fundamental rights of each and every member countries. So, respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. All the countries should have basic freedom. Now, fourth point, to be a center for harmonizing the actions of nations in the attainment of these common ends. So, this UN should be the center of harmonizing the actions of nations. So, there should be unity, there should be harmony to in the attainment of these common ends, these common needs. To attain these common needs, all the countries should be united. There should be in harmony. There are 3 new objectives set by the UN. So, that is disarm, decolonize and develop are the 3 new objectives set by the UN. There can be a question, which are the new objectives set by the UN? So, disarm, decolonize and develop, 3 Ds. So, disarm, decolonize and develop are the 3 new objectives set by the UN. Organs of the United Nations. The United Nations has 6 organs, but we have to study only 3 organs. The General Assembly, the Security Council and the International Court of Justice. We have to study only the composition and functions. So let's study the composition of the General Assembly. All members of the United Nations are members of the General Assembly. So the very name itself indicates that General Assembly. General means everyone. So here all members of the United Nations are members of the General Assembly. General Assembly is composed of all the members. Each state has 5 representatives in the General Assembly, but each state has 1 vote. Each member state can send 5 representatives to the General Assembly, but there is only 1 vote. All the 5 members cannot vote. Only 1 member can vote. The regular session of the General Assembly begins each year on the 3rd Tuesday in September and continues usually until the 3rd week of December. That is the duration of each year's session. So each year the session starts on the 3rd Tuesday of September and it will continue till the 3rd week of December. At the start of each regular session, the Assembly elects a new president, 21 vice presidents and the chairman of the Assembly's 6 main committees. So in the first session itself there is election for the president of the General Assembly and there will be 21 vice presidents and there are 6 committees. And for each committee, 1 chairman is elected in the first session itself. To ensure equitable geographical representation, the presidency of the Assembly rotates each year among 5 groups of states. So here presidency, who will be the president? There should not be any partiality. For the equitable geographical representation, the presidency of the Assembly rotates each year. Each year the president will change among 5 groups of states. These groups are Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe, Latin America and Caribbean and Western Europe and other states. So special sessions are convened by the Secretary General on request of the Security Council or by a special request by a majority of members. Decisions on important matters are made by a 2/3 majority. Decision making is done by voting. So for this decision making, 2/3 majority is required. That's enough for the powers and functions of the General Assembly. There are 9 points given, but we have to study only 5 points. First, to consider and make recommendations on the principles of cooperation in the maintenance of international peace and security. So, make recommendations on the principles of cooperation. For what? To maintain international peace and security. That is the main thing. That is the main motto of the UN as well as the General Assembly. Then to initiate studies and make recommendations to promote international, political, social and economic cooperation. So that is to conduct studies and make recommendations to promote international, political, social and economic cooperation. There should be cooperation in each and every field. For that, studies should be conducted. Then, to make recommendations for the peaceful settlement of disputes. If there is a dispute between 2 countries or 2 or 3 countries, then that disputes should be settled. Peaceful settlement of disputes. Then, to elect the non-permanent members of the Security Council, the Economic and Social Council and the Trusteeship Council, and to elect the judges of the International Court of Justice. So, elect the non-permanent members of the Security Council, then Economic and Social Council and Trusteeship Council, and to elect the judges of the International Court of Justice. These all are the functions of the General Assembly. And then one more thing, to appoint the Secretary General on the recommendation of the Security Council. Secretary General is also elected in this General Assembly only on recommendation of the Security Council. These are the functions. These are the functions of the powers and functions of the General Assembly. So we have discussed 5 points. The Security Council. The Security Council is the executive body of the United Nations. That is a short question answer. So, which is the executive body of the United Nations? The Security Council is the executive body of the United Nations. It has the primary responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security. So, this Security Council has the responsibility to maintain international peace and security. Now, composition. The Council consists of 15 members. There are totally 15 members. It has 5 permanent members. Which are the 5 permanent members? China, France, Russia, Britain, and the United States of America. The regional representations of the 10 non-permanent members is Afro-Asian countries, 5 members. Latin American countries, 2 members. The West European and other countries, 2. Then East European countries, 1. So totally there are 10 non-permanent members and 5 permanent members. The 10 non-permanent members are elected by the General Assembly by a 2/3 majority for a term of 2 years. The non-permanent members are elected by the General Assembly by 2/3 majority, and their term is 2 years. They are elected for a term of 2 years. A retiring member is not eligible for immediate re-election. If a member country is retiring, they cannot apply for re-election immediately, but later they can apply. The presidency of the council rotates monthly according to the English alphabetic listing of its member states. The presidency, who should be the president? The president changes every month according to the English alphabets. Functions and powers of the Security Council. First function, to maintain international peace and security in accordance with the principles and purposes of the United Nations. So that is the main function of the Security Council, to maintain international peace and security according to the principle of the United Nations. Second, to investigate any dispute or situation which might lead to international friction and to take military action against an aggressor. Security Council has to investigate if there is any dispute or any situation that leads to international friction and to take military action against the aggressor. So, Security Council is responsible for the investigation, whether if there is any dispute between any countries, or if there is any situation that leads to a friction between two countries, or then if there is any action, any military action required against an aggressor. These all things are decided by the Security Council. Now, to recommend methods of adjusting such disputes or the terms of settlement. The Security Council only would recommend methods to adjust such situation, and they will consider the terms of settlement of disputes. Now, to formulate plans for the establishment of a system to regulate armaments. They only will control the stockpiling of armaments, to formulate plans for the establishment of a system. They will establish a system to regulate armaments. Then, To take military action against an aggressor, that is discussed. Then, to recommend the admission of new members. Security Council will only recommend the admission of a new non-permanent member. International Court of Justice. The International Court of Justice is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. We have to study the composition. The court is composed of 15 judges elected to 9-year terms of office by the United Nations General Assembly and the Security Council, sitting independently of each other. There are 15 judges in the International Court of Justice. They are elected for a term of 9 years by the General Assembly and the Security Council, sitting separately, sitting independently. It may not include more than one judge from any nationality. From each and every nation, only one judge is elected. Elections are held every 3 years for 1/3 of the seats, and retiring judges may be re-elected. So every 3 years there is election, and 1/3 of the judges retire every 3 years, and the retiring judges can reapply, can be re-elected. The members of the court do not represent their governments but are independent magistrates. The judges cannot represent only their state, but they are independent magistrates. Now, powers and functions. The parties, only member states may apply to and appear before the court. So only the member states, members of the United Nations can apply and appear before the court. The member states of the United Nations are entitled to appear and apply before the International Court of Justice. Only the members of the United Nations are allowed to appear and apply in the International Court of Justice. Sources of applicable law. The court decides cases in accordance with the international treaties and conventions in force. The court decides cases according to the international treaties and conventions. And international customs, they have to consider international customs, the general principles of law, and a subsidiary means. Judicial decisions and the teachings of the most highly qualified publicists. They will refer the highly qualified publicists for a decision. Voluntary jurisdiction. The court is competent to entertain a dispute if the state concerned agree to take the issue to it. It is voluntary. So this International Court of Justice can take up a case if the state concerned agree to take the issue to it. Compulsory jurisdiction. The court has compulsory jurisdiction in the following cases. First, against the background that a large number of treaties provide that disputes are submitted to the court. If there are disputes regarding some treaties, large number of treaties, and if it is submitted to the court, then the court has to decide. Then its jurisdiction extends to, first, dispute pertaining to the interpretation of international law. If there is a dispute regarding the interpretation or the explanation of the international law, then this International Court of Justice will interfere or take up the case. Then reparation, that is compensation to be made for the breach of an international obligation. If there is an international obligation and that is not conducted, or if there is a break or if there is a breach, then this court will interfere. Reparation, that means compensation. Compensation should be paid for a matter, and if the country does not pay that compensation, then the Court of Justice will interfere. Now, advisory opinions. The advisory procedure of the court is open solely to international organizations. This Court of Justice can give advices to international organizations. The only bodies at present authorized to request advisory opinion of the court are 5 organs of the United Nations and 16 specialized agencies of the United Nations family. So these are the organizations which are entitled to get advice from the International Court of Justice. These are 5 organs of the United Nations and 16 specialized agencies of the United Nations. Codification of international law. See, the court has played a significant role in the codification of international law. What is codification? That is arranging laws or rules according to a system. So this International Court of Justice is a system. So the laws and rules will be arranged accordingly. So the court has played a significant role in the codification of international law. It examines international conventions, international customs, judicial decisions and general principles of law in the process of codification. Codification is done by examining international conventions. They will examine each and every thing, that is international conventions, international customs. So each and every country has its own customs and its own conventions. They would refer all these and then only they will codify the rules and regulations. So it examines international conventions, international customs, judicial decisions and general principles of law in the process of codification. Now, evolving procedure for peaceful settlement of disputes. So this Court of Justice would recommend or they would put forward some methods to settle the disputes. So the court may recommend appropriate procedures or methods of settlement during or at the end of the case. So this Court of Justice International Court of Justice would recommend appropriate or suitable procedures or methods for the settlement during or at the end of the case. Furthermore, it may also recommend terms of settlement. Terms of settlement will be recommended by the Court of Justice. The decisions of the court is made by the majority of the judges present. So the decision is taken by the majority of the judges in the court. There are 15 judges in the court. The majority would take the decision. That's all about the United Nations. So if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching. God bless.